So once we are done with producers and consumers, we understand we have already covered this portion from where do plants get nutrition. Okay, we will study now that you're in a little higher classes. We will discuss a little more about it. Carbon dioxide. Okay, Vansh, do you want to answer from where do plants get carbon dioxide?
Then plants get carbon dioxide through stomata.
It enters the leaf through stomata. But from where does carbon dioxide come? Where does plant get?
From living beings.
Yes, living beings as in, we exhale carbon dioxide. So it's all there in the air, in the atmosphere.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that is from where the plants get carbon dioxide. Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And very good. Thank you, Vansh. It is very self-explanatory that sunlight comes, from the sun. Yeah. So, here there is a very interesting thing that I would like to address. How does, sunlight, just a light, how does just a light help plant in preparing their own food? Because, it's not the same for anybody else. For example, not for human beings, not for animals. It is important for us, but sunlight actually, it's just not light. It's actually energy. It is a very powerful energy through which plants actually make their food. In the absence of sunlight, plants just cannot make food. Plants cannot make food. Photosynthesis doesn't happen once there's no sunlight, once it's night, after sunset. Most of you must have heard, no, your grandfather or your grandmother saying that, it's become late in the night, don't stand near a tree. Why do they say that? Most of the time when photosynthesis is happening, plants release oxygen. Yeah. So Syed, tell me, what happens at night? Why should not we stand under the tree at night?
Because, ma'am, because the plant releases carbon dioxide, and it is harmful for our body.
Very good. Well said. That's the reason why, whenever elders say something, there has to be a...
Ma'am, I have a question regarding this.
Tell me.
Ma'am, we have learned that the moon gets its light from the sunlight.
Correct.
So that same light is reaching the plants also. So they're basically getting sunlight only. So why do they still don't conduct photosynthesis?
Very good question, Veda. Please keep yourself on mute. I'll try and answer this. See, when I said that, sunlight is a very powerful source of energy, right? Do you think that at night, the moon, the light that the moon emits is as powerful as the sunlight in day?
No, ma'am, it's not as powerful.
It is not sufficient, it's not sufficient to, reach the stomata, to activate the chlorophyll and the chloroplast, to move on the guard cell. There is a whole lot of chemical reaction happening inside the leaf. So a moonlight is not sufficient to actually instigate or activate the entire photosynthesis. That's the reason why you would be seeing there are certain plants which need very bright sunlight. They need sunlight non-stop for 7 hours, 6 hours. There are certain plants which even if you keep it inside your house in a dark place, still it will grow. Those are the plants.
Is sunflower one of them?
Sunflower is one of them. Very well said. You will see the sunflower itself turns towards the direction of the sun. Yeah, though the food is made in the leaves, so it continuously requires sunlight. Whereas, the snake plant or the spider lily or the peace lily are plants which do not need sunlight that much. These are indoor plants. These can, beautifully blossom, grow into healthy plants with very little artificial light. Maybe the tube light, bulb light, moonlight is enough. Yeah. So this is the role of sunlight. Now, I hope it's clear why sunlight is so necessary. I'll just give you a very small classic example. The little grass that you see, the little grass that you see, in the garden, that itself requires so much sunlight. Put the grass inside your room, for within 2 to 3 days, the grass will just perish. It will just die. That means that little grass also needs such powerful sunlight for its growth and well-being, right? Advait, dear, you can put yourself on mute. Okay, now next coming to water. Water is, as important as sunlight. All the 5 things that we have discussed, that the plant requires for nutrition, each and every element is important. You cannot do away, I will not give sunlight to the plant, let it make its own food. Okay, today, next 1 week, I will not put water, let it make its own food. No, it doesn't happen. Every day it requires a little bit of everything. Water is very important. Why? Okay, Yuvraj, can you tell me why water is important? Why do plants need water for nutrition?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, tell me.
Ma'am, can I tell?
Okay, Advait, answer.
Ma'am, at my house I have so many plants. So
Okay.
one day I asked my father that every day, why do we need to give them water every day? So he told me that a plant needs carbon dioxide, glucose, water, air and oxygen and sunlight to make food. So if it doesn't get water properly, then it will not be able to make food and it will die.
Correct, but first of all, Advait, plant doesn't need oxygen, plant needs carbon dioxide. Yeah, it does not need glucose, it prepares glucose. Yeah, so it needs water, but why does it need water is my question. Yuvraj, do you want to answer this? Yuvraj, why is water so important for plants, for its nutrition? Yuvraj, can you hear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, why do you think water is such an important thing for plants to have the nutrition?
Ma'am, water is important for the plants to have nutrition because plants.
Tell me. We all know water is important, but why is it important? Explain.
Ma'am, because it helps the plant to grow and get nutrition.
True, very true. But how does it help it? How does it help to grow?
Ma'am, may I tell?
Karthik, yes, I have read your answer. You're right. I have read your answer. So what you have written in the chat is right. Yeah, water actually helps.
Ma'am, can I tell the explained answer that why do they need water?
Okay, who is saying this? Advait?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me, Advait.
Ma'am, the water is very important for plants because it helps for the transportation of nutrients and sugars to the plants.
Partially right, Advait. Okay, you can mute yourself. Water does help in the transportation of nutrients, right? How does the transportation happen? Just see a classic example. For example, you have a pot of plant, right? It has soil. And once in a blue moon, once in a month, you will see your parents would be putting some manure, some fertilizer to it. These are all powdered fertilizer, right? Many a times it is liquid fertilizer, but that fertilizer has to reach the leaf. How will that happen? That will only happen if there is a medium which will mix it up. And the medium here is water, right? Once you water the soil, there are many roles actually which water plays. When you water the plant, these nutrients, the fertilizers that you have added, that mixes up with the water, right? And then it is in a soluble form now. So what happens is that the roots, the root hairs beautifully, easily absorbs all these nutrients and sends it to the root vessels, to the stem, and then to the leaf. Ki chalo, your nutrients I'm sending, now prepare food. Okay, now one thing which I wanted to ask, Khushi, tell me, human beings prepare food in the kitchen. So what is which part of the plant is the kitchen of the plant, which makes the food, Khushi?
I think it is the leaf.
Very good. So the leaf, just like, our mother, what does mother does? She accumulates all the food items into the kitchen and then she makes the food there, isn't it? Similarly, the leaf has to be sent all the nutrients. The leaf has to be sent water, the leaf has to be sent nutrient, the leaf has to be sent sunlight, the leaf has to get carbon dioxide through stomata. So once the leaf, that means the kitchen has all the items, all the recipes, for all the ingredients to make food, then it will start making its food through photosynthesis. This is a beautiful scientific process. Right? Photosynthesis is a very intelligent process which God has designed for nature to function. Correct? So that was one point that we had discussed about water. What is the most important, another important point of water? Water helps in turbidity. Have you heard of this word turbidity? Turbidity is basically just try and press, a stem or a leaf with your nail. You will find a little liquidy, watery substance coming out. Why? It makes the stem, the plant, the tree, the leaf erect. Certain amount of water is required to make the plant erect. Correct? So water is also a very important thing to maintain the turbidity or the turgidity of the plant. The leaf needs to be turbid, right? It guards there are certain guard cells, which we will study in detail. We will study in detail about it, that, the entire structure of a stomata, the guard cells, the vacuoles, they need water very much. It's very important for them to maintain the right water amount.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, tell me, Karthik.
Does the term turbidity stand for only water or any other thing also?
It is basically for water. Water builds. It is basically turgidity. Yeah. Water is the substance which builds turgidity in plants. If you don't water a plant, for maybe 2-3 days at a stretch, you will find that the stem, the leaves have become a little, morbid, are drying up. And slowly, if you don't water for the next 3 more days, you will see the stem has bent towards one side. That means it has lost the turgidity. It cannot make the plant erect anymore. And after that, slowly the leaves dry up, the stem dries up, the roots dry up, and slowly, everything, the entire plant dries up. It droops.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So that was the part of water. Now coming to the nutrients from the soil, this is also equally important. So this is why I was saying, you cannot miss any of these things. Each and everything is equally important. Like it is like, 100% of everything is needed for the photosynthesis to keep going. Now, when we say nutrients, what are the nutrients that is required, by a plant? Riddhima, would you like to take up this question? Riddhima, Veda, Karthik, you're right. There are, of course, nitrogen is needed. Yeah, nitrogen is needed by plants. There are certain minerals and trace elements which are also required, by the plants for a good, healthy growth, so that, it can grow properly. It can have healthy fruits and flowers, seeds and everything. There are many trace elements. There are almost 15 to 16 trace elements, minerals like phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, everything, sulfur. Yes, there is a little bit, there are very trace elements. When we say trace elements, matlab we need micrograms of those nutrients for the plant.
Ma'am, magnesium sulfur can be in the soil?
Yes, it is normally there in the soil, but many a times when the soil is deficient of any nutrient, that is when we add, Karthik, please mute yourself. I'll answer to this question. That is when we add, fertilizers. Correct? What is fertilizer?
Yes, ma'am.
Fertilizers are basically, substances. These are chemical substances.
Oh, ma'am, may I tell one of the nutrients?
Yeah, please tell me, Riddhima.
Okay. Ma'am, one is calcium and nitrogen.
Yes, yes, right. Calcium and nitrogen. You know, when we talk about nitrogen, we will be discussing about nitrogen in the coming classes. Why
Ma'am, I
nitrogen is
have
so
a
important for
question.
plants.
And ma'am,
Yes,
sulfur also.
yes. Veda,
Ma'am,
ask
I
the
have a
question that you
question.
have.
Ma'am, you are saying that for like if we want to make the soil fertile, if the plants need nutrition, we can use fertilizers. But
Correct.
ma'am, don't you think that the fertilizers, overuse of fertilizers can also ruin the soil?
Yes,
So,
yes.
can we instead use leguminous plants
Uh,
instead of fertilizers?
yeah. Thank you, Veda. Thank you for the question. It would be of help for others as well. Veda has raised a question whereby she's saying overuse of fertilizers. Now, there are two aspects to it. One is soil is deficient of nutrients. It doesn't have any nutrient. That's why the plant is not growing healthily. It is drooping. It is not flowering. That is, absolutely no nutrition, right? Either the soil has been used over and over again. So we need to give fertilizers. Now, fertilizers are very balanced, compounds. The right amount of nitrogen, the right amount of calcium, exact amount of magnesium, exact amount of vermicompost, everything is combined together in the form of a fertilizer, and then a certain amount of it is put under a plant. Now, the question that Veda asked is overuse. When do we overuse? Either when we are not educated enough, that is when we overuse fertilizers. But overuse of fertilizers is never recommended, especially when it's chemical fertilizers, right? Now, the second question that Veda had, that why don't we plant leguminous plants instead of putting fertilizers? Good question. See, Veda, leguminous plants will only take care of any one nutrient, and that is nitrogen fixation. What about magnesium? What about iron? What about sulfur? What about, other several organic nutrients that are required? That's the reason why fertilizer, it is very balanced. It has a little bit of everything. Now, there are different types of plants. There is sunflower, which needs a lot of zinc. For example, there is peanut plant, which is a leguminous plant, which needs a lot of nitrogen, because peanuts are protein. To build protein as fruits, a plant needs a lot of nitrogen. So every plant has a different requirement. So you can't put a common fertilizer to all the plants. As you cannot plant leguminous plant in every field. Every
Excuse
plant
me,
has.
ma'am.
Yes, Delisha, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is, like, if there are germs in the soil, so will the plant die or not? Like algae or the fungus?
Okay, thank you. Delisha, I'll answer it. See, when you say germs, germs is of several types. When you say germs, I'm considering that they are either bacteria, algae, fungi, or whatever. Now you can divide it into two parts. They could be either friendly bacteria, friendly germs, or they could be pest, harming the plant. So they could be either good or they could be either bad. If they are good, they have to be in a sufficient amount so that they benefit the plant. We will study about how it benefits, certain bacteria benefits the plant. If they
Ma'am?
are, Unmana, let me finish off this answer, dear. I'll take up your question after this, yeah?
Okay, ma'am.
Now, when we are talking about pests, pests also means there are certain germs which we cannot see with our naked eyes, but they are pests. There are certain fungus, you know, uh, overgrowth of that can really spoil the health of a plant. So those are not encouraged. In order to kill, or in order to check those pests, we need to apply pesticides. Pesticides matlab to kill. Sides means to kill. Pest means to kill the pest. Correct? So Veda, you're discussing another thing, that is weeds. Weeds are different. We are discussing about nutrition. Correct? All right. So I guess, we have almost, discussed or covered all the points: carbon dioxide, sunlight, water, nutrients from soil, how, why, when they are needed by the plant.